Yo, 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 yo. So that test session went well. I'll hold my phone out this time. It keeps rotating and shit. Test session went well. New mic audio doesn't sound the best, but it does cut out a lot of the wind and shit. So that's very good for these kind of strolls. So now I'm actually going to talk about something. Now I'm charged up. So let's talk about the real versus the fake. The real versus the fake. Real niggas versus fake ass bust ass bitches. And I'm not putting a gender to this. So that's not what I mean. I don't want y'all running off with that, saying that Samurai Black was calling women bad words or some shit like that. Don't do it. Don't try me. First things first, Soul Rising, double this album in stores now, streaming on all platforms. You can buy the direct download on my website and get it forever. Um, we have vinyls. We have NFC tag keychain where you can get my entire catalog for $200. Only 9 of those in stock on my website. We have new merch just dropped: hoodies, t-shirts, duffel bags. What else we got? Steel plate paintings, not just for Soul Rising merch, but also for Angels. And right now I have the logo number 4 set, and which is the logo that you see across all my channels, and also the logo number 5. I have a beanie out for that one. I haven't used that one for anything else. So that's there. Hit the link in the description or subscribe and hit the link on my channel to go to samurai blackmusic.com. Check out what we got. So the real versus the fake. So one thing I'm coming to realize, and something that I've been studying pretty extensively recently, is how certain artists, certain um, actors and actresses, certain luminaries, so to speak, even like outside of like the entertainment realm and more in the realm of like, conscious community people, or, just people who are speakers, like podcasters or streamers. I look at how they end up getting their claim to fame and how they end up securing their audience and their position. And I've noticed some underlying things that you might find interesting. What's up, Isaiah? When it comes to these people, these rappers that get pushed to the, highest echelons, quote unquote, and they get millions and billions of streams, with the label backing and all this kind of stuff. There's a few things that strategically and systematically happen to push these people to the forefront. One, first of all, they build the image. Let's talk about hip hop, right? Hip hop started out as kind of a cultural revolution in a sense. It started out by a game from way, way, way back in the 30s and 40s, maybe even before that, called the Dozens, where people would be standing on the corner, across the street from each other. Let's say they're on a block in Baltimore or something like that. And one of them would scream, "Your mama's so fat, she, walk in the door and she's still outside." And then the other one would scream, "Your mama so stink, blah 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 blah." Right? It's called the Dozens. It's a game. This was kind of like, strangely enough, one of the early inceptions of like how hip hop transformed from, the b boys dancing and break dancing to, the DJs scratching on records, to all that kind of stuff, right? And but and around, I would say, like late '80s, early '90s, it started taking influence from certain individuals and certain movements to where people actually started speaking real things. They started talking about sociological issues. They started talking about the world at large. They started talking about what was going on in their communities. And then it became a way for people to express what was going on in their communities so that other people that are outside of those communities before the internet came around, they were able to hear their story and know it, right? It was like a form of communication, and it became powerful. Hip hop is a movement in itself, right? So what happens, as with basically any good thing that springs up like this? Well, powerful controlling interests start asking questions like, how can we can take control of this and direct it to our ends, right? So you have certain organizations and things who came together and they had little meetings in little dark, dimly lit rooms with the table around and cigar smoke floating in the air. I'm just imagining this, that last part, as far as the atmosphere, but it probably was cigar and cigarette smoke floating in the air. And they're sitting there talking to each other and they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we, this hip hop thing is too powerful. It's uniting people. They're coming together positively. We have this neo soul shit, this Erica Badu's and Music Soul Childs and Talib Kweli's and Outkast, and we have these people that are pushing these messages that are actually uplifting people. We can't have that shit. People are uplifting themselves. They're not going to buy products. They're not going to go into the prison pipeline system. They're not going to do that. Okay, so what do we do? All right, cool. Let's go ahead and we see that there's this bubbling thing called gangster rap. Yeah. Now it's scary when you look at it because these niggers look like they mean business. But on the same token, let's think about it this way. We can take this gangster rap thing and use these artists to spin influence to get people to commit crimes, to get people to disregard one another, to get people to throw away their respect, their morals, their guidelines, because they want to be like that guy that's on the billboard, or that's on the poster, or that's on MTV, or that's on BET. They want to be like him. So, all right, let's go ahead and we'll come together with this label, and we'll come together with this label. We'll pour some money behind them. And these labels will start signing these gangster rappers and start pushing them to the forefront. Lo and behold, Tupac gets killed, Biggie gets killed, Big L gets killed, ODB dies mysteriously, et cetera, so on and so forth, until hip hop is in a chaotic state. And all of a sudden, gangster rappers really start being pushed to the forefront. Snoop Dogg catches a murder charge. He goes to prison, comes back out, et cetera, so on and so forth, right? And then it kind of moves in these stages, right? Because not everybody's just going to be on board with this all the time. Like, not everybody that loves hip hop would listen to gangster rap. So instead, what do? Okay, this thing is coming out of Atlanta called crunk music, and people are just partying and dancing, snapping their fingers, do this step. You could do it all by yourself. Lil Jon is killing it. He's on tracks with everybody. All right, let's keep pushing him. Let's push more D4L. Let's Ti is coming out here with this trap stuff. Let's push that. All this we push it to the forefront to where it drowns out basically everything else going on in the music space. And it was damn near 10 years. How do I know this? Because I was a young black man. I was in school at the time. And I remember that was the exact time period that I tapped out of hip hop. I stopped listening. I didn't want to hear it anymore because I was noticing it was too repetitive. This is me at like 13, 14 years old. I'm like, there's something wrong with this. This doesn't make sense. This all people want to do is snap their fingers and do their step. All people want to do is go to the club and knock if you buck. And I was pretty big for a 14-year-old kid anyway. So I had been in a couple clubs. It wasn't really what all the hype was about. Like I didn't really see what the hype was about. It, so they start pushing these artists with these vapid values, talking about drinking and drugs and partying and shooting and selling drugs and taking drugs. And there's this whole progression to where on the mainstream end, it becomes completely degenerate. They start blackballing and drowning out the artists that actually have something to say or to speak against these things, right? And this is intentional. So now, in the world we're in today of hip hop, we have this cookie cutter archetype of artists where they got a whole bunch of tattoos all over their arms and back and neck and face, and they maybe got a grill and they got a big gaudy fucking chain, and they they talk about how many blocks they spin and how many ops they drill and uh, all the drugs that they're taking, the Percocet and the Molly and the lean and all that shit, to where people are so they've been marketed this so long they forget that there's another side to this. They forget that there's actually people out there that actually have genuine values and genuine messages, and not just that, but there's people out there that have genuine values and messages and can actually rap way better than these fuckers that they're pushing to the forefront. That's a very curious thing because if you're asleep, right, like you're in a dream, and somebody walks up to you and says, "Hey, you're dreaming. You're asleep. You can wake up anytime you want." If you're in that dream, you're looking around, you may be like, "No, I like what's going on around me. There's a buffet, and there's a steak, and different kinds of cakes and fruits, and there's people dancing, and it's happy. It's happy, but it's not fucking real." It becomes very difficult to kind of snap out of that state, and that's the state that basically this world has been in for quite some time. It's a sleep spell. It's called Leviathan. Go read 666 Leviathan, The Number of the Beast by Dr. Malachi Z. York. He breaks it all down. So now there's people who are starting to see through this facade. There's people that are waking up. There's artists that are coming out that are pushing against these narratives and pushing real values forward. And there's people that are starting to gravitate to those artists. So the thing about hip hop that's really interesting is that it's not just like a only a urban or suburban America thing anymore. Like it's literally everywhere. It's in the UK, it's in Africa, it's in fucking Bangladesh, like everywhere. And I was watching this interview by this guy who used to work for the State Department. His name is Mike Benz. You can look this interview up. It just came out a couple weeks ago on YouTube. And he was talking about how certain organizations, like the CIA using US aid and et cetera, they would basically pull together and create these campaigns to put funds behind artists, rappers in foreign countries to incite anger and fear and essentially incite violence of basically foreign countries by pushing certain messages through these rappers that they were paying to get them to overthrow the government. They wouldn't even have to put boots on the ground. They wouldn't have to send any soldiers. They do it by winning the hearts and minds of the people. And this has been going on for quite some time. And I noticed, I mean, you can go through country after country. Basically, every single country who we've seen where the government's been overthrown or a president's been overthrown or something like that over the last like 10, 15 years is probably them because they do it systematically. But it's interesting when the host asked him the question, have they ever used this on the US? The guy, for the first time in the interview, he like paused. He had to be very careful about how he spoke about it. And he said, "Well, yes." And he said, "Okay, how recently?" He said 2020. Ah, so doesn't that make sense? Doesn't that make sense? Because a lot of things were happening in 2020. People started waking up very quickly in 2020, but just as quickly as they were waking up, a lot of people were being put right back to sleep. That doesn't just happen by accident, it happens by force. Force of will doesn't necessarily have to be physical force. And here's how we get to spaces that we are today. Now, today, because the truth has gotten so much louder than the lie, today it's it's interesting because a lot of these people that they've been pushing to the forefront, a lot of these artists that they get used to push these messages and to push this energy out, a lot of these artists are starting to fall off. They're starting to turn on each other. You saw what happened to Drake, right? You see what's happening with Young Thug, Lil Baby, 21 Savage is silent. I could name artist after artist. Drill artists kill each other. As sad as it is what it is. It's the circumstances and environment they create around themselves by pushing these frequencies. So now what happens is there's a gap. They try to push up another artist to take the forefront and be the superstar for them, but it's not moving as quickly as it used to. So then what happens? Superstars pop out organically. You have a 1440 tie, springs out from homelessness, literally on the streets, who comes out with right knowledge and he starts pushing it, and people love it. They start gravitating to it. They start supporting it. And it's a beautiful thing. Don't let these social media metrics fool you. Vanity metrics, they call it for a reason. Don't think just because he's only at 117,000 followers, that's all the people who are really rallying behind him. No, because there were certain things that were happening even at the time when that explosion happened that made it, uh, let's say, slowed down the process of people who were looking for him to find him clearly. Now, thankfully, he has a good circle around him. He has people around him that care for what he's trying to do. But the point is, there's more out here. There's more coming, and most importantly, the people are looking for it. People are hungry for it. They're tired of the lies, tired of the bullshit. So, when it comes to assessing what's real and what's fake, I think if you ask the question, what's authentic, if you assign authentic and genuine to real, we wouldn't have so many misconceptions about what real actually is. A real nigga is not someone that kills people on the streets. It's not a drug dealer. It's not someone who pimps women or any of these things. That is a criminal. That is a punk. That is a bum. A real nigga is a man who builds up the people around him, who builds something himself, and who builds communities. There aren't a lot, but there are some out here. Which side are you gonna support? Which side do what values are you actually gonna be pumping into your ears? Yes, those 808s and those beats and that bass, that shit sounds so hard. The way that snare hits, oh man, yes, it sounds great. I get it. But what are they actually saying? What's behind those frequencies? What are you having repeated into your mind over and over again? These are the questions that you have to ask. And you'll find oftentimes people will start turning away from music, especially after they just start paying attention. They'll start turning away from music that doesn't inspire them to do something great or to be their best self, because they'll realize, oh wait, I've been listening to bullshit this whole time. Oh, I've been listening to this rapper with this chain and these cool shades and the grill. and all the money and women around him and the supercars. I've been listening to him because these labels want me to listen to him. Why do they want me to listen to him and not this person over here? Why am I listening to this song that has 300 billion streams and it's not even that good of a song? And I got this guy over here that has 1,000 streams and they poured their whole heart and soul into it. And it's actually something uplifting and inspiring. And it slaps. Why am I leaning towards that? You have to realize that you're being played. You're being played. Stop falling for it. What you think is real, what you've been, I'll put it this way because I don't know what you think. What you've been led to believe is real is not real. What you've been led to believe doesn't matter. Oftentimes you want to take a second look because there might be some reasoning behind it. There might be something that matters there. The nuclear family does matter. Setting a good example for the children does matter. Being able to tend to your own and tend to yourself and take care of yourself and be self sufficient, that does matter. Being able to create something that not just you can enjoy, but also others can enjoy, whatever that creation may be, it doesn't matter. What doesn't matter is the fact that it says 0 people are on here because I've already seen hundreds of people come through this live while I'm on here. And I still don't care about those vanity metrics. If you're in here and you hear me, you hear me. So at the end of the day, when it comes to what's real and what's fake, you have to use more than just your eyes to determine this. You have to use all of your senses, which is really just one sense. And then you have to use some extrasensory perceptions as well, if you can develop those to determine it. Because this world is not what meets the eye. That's it. I'm gonna go get to work, play with my children, put them to bed. If I do so, I should. That means the